these are the top 10 Alliance War attackers for the Science class. In 10th place, we have Thing. He has really unique immunities. They're slightly less unique now, but the main thing that is worthy of note is that this combination doesn't really happen. So Nullify and Shock, Nullify and Bleed, even Nullify and Armor Break. So the way that these interact together in one package is really cool and really helpful. He's very tanky, just in general. He has the unstoppable safety net where if you are at or above 15 rock stacks and you get hit, you will go unstoppable. And then he has also a protection safeguard, which when he is stunned or when he throws his heavy, obviously there's a cooldown, he does take severely reduced damage. It's also when he takes a crap load of damage at once, which isn't that helpful unless you make a tremendous blunder. So it definitely can be helpful in something like Alliance War, unless you're taking like a Ghost SP2, probably won't come into play, but definitely helpful as well. Mr. Fantastic, very controllable and kind of measured approach to how you play him. He has a Petrify, which can reverse and reduce healing and power gain. He has combat power reduction, which actually gets pretty potent. And he has this DOT thing that reduces the damage that you take from damage over time and increases the potency of your own. He has a Shock, which isn't that useful, but it's really useful as a pre-fight. One of the coolest things about him is that he can apply the pre-fight suppression and DOT increase and decrease as pre-fights and give utility to other champions who may not have it or may not have it to that degree. Something like Tiger vs. Dr. Doom isn't as feasible without Mr. Fantastic, but with it, it's one of the easiest and best matchups. He also has a stagger on the SP1, which is super helpful. He is one of only, I think, three champions with stagger. Thing actually has it on the SP2, but with Thing, you're not usually learning specials. But yeah, so stagger on a science champion is very helpful, and he also can severely mitigate the amount of damage you take from special attacks when the opponent throws them with his careful study debuffs, I believe is what they're called. 8th, we have Red Hulk. He isn't technically immune, but he shrugs, incinerate, and poison, and turns each debuffs only, and turns them into heat charges, which each give you 18% of your attack damage as red damage, and caps at 10. So that's basically, in theory, multiplying your attack by 2.8 multiplier. With his Sig ability, he is immune to incinerate damage as well, so we're talking about like Mephisto, and then something like a passive incinerate. There aren't really that many passive incinerates. I guess it'd be something like Wiccan, or I guess Absorbing Man, but he'd be immune to those, the damage itself as well. At Sig, I believe it's 31 or 32 when he has 10 charges, and then it scales through based on Sig. And he also has a fair amount of physical resistance based on the heat charges. Quicksilver is 7th. He's very, very good, and he's probably higher if you can play him at a phenomenal level. He has a very high skill cap, and he can reduce the ability power rate with his Withers, similar to Spidey 99. You can only really get a meaningful amount of reversal if you have max dexterity or if you're awakened, because awakening increases the amount of the cap for Withers. You can only do 3 without it, but I believe you can do 6, I think, when you are awakened. He has an anti-miss and an anti-evade based on his charges. He doesn't get a dexterity buff when he uses the dexterity mastery. He has this massive burst damage that isn't technically based on hitting the opponent, which is very cool because you could hit him and then back off and just wait for it to detonate. He has this evade safety net where if you get stunned, he'll evade out of it, and if you get intercepted, he'll evade out of it, and also he has an increased dexterity window on the terminal velocity. He's a very high skill champion, but he allows you to do a lot of crazy stuff if you can utilize his kit well. And 6th is Mr. Negative. He has massive degen damage, and very few people are immune to degen, or no one, but very few people are immune to the degen damage as well. He's Nullify immune. He can remove his own buffs by dashing back, and it does not trigger MD. It does not trigger the degeneration from Mojo's anti-life field or Dormammu's sick ability. He has a potent Petrify on the SB2. He can reduce the combat power rate of defenders with his Delirium when you invert your, you do the Delirium, which does invert your controls, I guess, if you're facing him. And he has degen resistance. It can heal from it with the Sig, and he has free intercepts with that energy conversion. Overseer is Nullify immune and not really reliant on RNG either. He hits really hard, has massive burst damage in the cosmic mode, and he, when you are awakened, gets abilities for nullifying and poisoning, or for people trying to do that to him, so it ramps him faster, and I mean all these other things. He has a whole bunch of crazy abilities, but it comes down to the fact that he hits really hard and is nullify immune, and poison immune for the most part. Quake, choose Quake. You don't have to hit the opponent. You can reduce their ability accuracy by 100%. Pretty standard. Spidey 99, similar to Quake, but a little bit different. You hit the block, and so you don't have to hit the opponent to do copious amounts of damage. And he also has a massive power reversal for ability power rate only. That's with his Wither on his SP2, but you can also get it at the start of the fight with the Anti-Venom synergy. He's buff immune, so that's all buffs, including buffs that they may put on you, such as Man-Thing or Ebony Maw. And on the SP3, he has an Anti-Evade Unstoppable and a slow debuff, but that's pretty hard to do because Special 3 is not always feasible to get to. And all these debuffs that I'm talking about can be paused by triggering what would be a buff. Second is Scorpion. It says dual immunities, but it should say triggered triple immunities. Well, it's technically dual immunities because it's 2 at once, but it's Rupture, Poison, and Shock, and whichever one you are doing, which is to say Poison, you'd be immune to Rupture and Shock, so the other 2, and so these first 2 points kind of go hand in hand. He has Potent Power Stings, which is ideally on the SP1, getting more of those debuffs, and the SP1 also taunts, and that damage is directly the damage over time that you have selected. So if it's Rupture, it would be a Rupture Sting. On SP2, he has a massive burst of damage based on the number of damaging over time debuffs of that specific type on the opponent, and also on your little like weird like X-looking charges, not sure what they're called. He has a Petrify on the SP2 and can steal the health, some of the health that he is preventing when he is awakened. He can block unblockable specials when they are taunted, when he is awakened, and he also gets a Fury for every single one of his Sting debuffs, which is the name of the Rupture, Poison, and Shock that you can toggle with the pre-fight when you have the Agent Venom or the Venom synergy. First is Human Torch. He has insane damage over time. It's just a fact. If you're facing a Mystic or an Energy damage champion, you get Smolders, and you hit a lot harder. And if you have the Nova Flame pre-fight, you kind of just hit hard no matter what. He has Potent Heal Reversal, especially actually on his non-Nova Flames, because you can use that coupled with Despair. And he has Power Sting damage on his Nova Flames. He has an anti-miss mechanic when he's at 10 or above temperature, and he has Incinerate or Cold Snap immune, but it mostly comes down to insane damage over time and anti-miss. And those are the 10 best science attackers in the game. So let me know down in the comments if you agree or disagree, or who you would like to be added, or arguments or things that I missed on any champion. So thank you for watching.